Right, welcome to tonight's Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board meeting. Hopefully we've got a few people watching online because we haven't got a lot here tonight, but we will get underway with our karakia timatanga. So if you would like to join me, tākina te marama ki a tātou, tākina te aroha ki a tātou, tākina te rangimarie ki a tātou, ko pirongia me te kawa, ko manga tautari, ko kakapoku nā maunga, ko waikato, ko waipa nā awa, tihei mauri ora. Right, so tonight we do have a couple of apologies with item 1. So if we can receive that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board receives the apologies of members John Wood and Kane Titchener, and we will add Liam Bullen for lateness. So can I have someone to move that? Jill, second. Shane, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Come on, Dean. Right, so item 2, do we have any disclosures of members' interests for tonight? No? Okay, and 3, we don't have anyone for the public forum, so we will move to item 4 on pages 7 to 12 of our agenda, which is confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. Now, I did spot a tiny typo that I can let you know what that was, because I think, hopefully, I put a wee note on that. I did. Sloan should be Sloan with an E, not without. On page, ooh, oh, we're talking about pots probably. Item 9, notice of motion from board member Wood. It's just a little typo. So with do I need to change it to say about the typo? It's so tiny, I'm not going to worry. Let's go with that. The Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board confirms the minutes of the meeting held 23rd of June 2026 as circulated with the agenda as a true and correct record, subject to the type correction. Yep, cool. Can I have someone to move that? Jill, second. Dean, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. 2. Right, I would like to invite Dale Marie Morgan to speak to her deputation in regard to the Māori ward. Please, welcome Dale Marie, nice to have you here. And I would just like to put forward my apologies, all the losses that you guys have received lately, our condolences and sympathy to iwi, hapu and whānau. So over to you.
I mihi ana ki a koe Ange mo tō kupu aroha kia Ngāti Raukawa ki wharepuhunga I tēnei wā. Ai, he whakaaro nui ki a koe e te tōhunga whakairo wāmu. Koutou rā ko Wita Clark, tēnei rangi ko Trixie Hinekahu Quinn. E moi koutou, oki oki atu koutou. Ki tua o Pairo. Yeah, bit of a rough week for Ngāti Raukawa in the last 8 days. Hoi anō, it's that time of the year where what we sort of say in iwi where we have these waka jumpers, where they're jumping from this waka to the next waka. So coming back to hunga ora, he rawe te kite ia koutou, te poari a Te Awamutu. It's lovely to see you, the board of Te Awamutu, and always a privilege to have a deputation as the Māori ward to deliver a small report this time round this month, albeit we were on recess in July, we kind of weren't. Not that it says too much in there, but yeah, the Māori ward's not an idle kind of role. But I'm looking, we had iwi chairs today here, which was quite positive. I think I did mention it on that report, or on that sheet, he manu karere. But yeah, it's pretty basic this time round, and if there's any questions from anyone, no mai, pātai mai.
Kia ora, Dale Marie. Thank you. Has anyone got any questions? Shane?
First, I just want to congratulate you on passing your exams, and that's good. I know that a lot was going on while you were trying to study, so well done. And just one other question. I note you had a meeting about the Alpha Culture and Arts Centre for in Kihikihi. Any update on where that sits at the moment would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a really positive meeting. It was the third time it had been arranged by Waipa. So let's just say the Māori ward was very particular with our whare to make sure that that meeting happened. It was good to have rongo wetere in the whare, because I'm sure that many whānau in Te Awamutu know the long history that rongo has here and the long history of what he's done here. So to let everybody know, the Alpha Restoration Group did not come for any money. They came to see if Waipa would buy into the idea of what they would like to create at the Alpha. We saw a blueprint of what is a possibility that could be behind the Alpha. And I think there were really good discussions around possibilities and how we could work together as council and that group, and looking at how we could do something there. They were pretty clear with us that they didn't want any financial help at this stage, and that they have a clear staging of what they want to do. But it has lots of moving parts to it, as I'm sure you can appreciate. But I am pretty confident that someone who can turn a dump site into a national tertiary provider was given a dump site, given a shed, and 7 people mortgaged their homes to make Te Wānanga o Aotearoa. So I think if anyone can pull a rabbit out of a hat, rongo wetere can. He's proved people wrong. He was accused of mismanagement and all types of things as the head of Te Wānanga Aotearoa, but as one of the workers that was sitting in his campus in Raroere at the time and working with the commissioner, Rongo didn't do anything wrong. Rongo gave too many options and he enabled people. And that was not part of a strategy that the tertiary providers had ever expected. Because what Rongo provided was what the tertiary providers did not want to. And he enabled a bridge for people to get to tertiary education that never ever had the chance to before. So it was really beautiful to have someone like Rongo back in our whare, who has been part of flourishing this town. And I think, I know Dean probably knows, as well as yourself, Shane, of how many places that he fixed up around here as well, that were decrepit. Nobody would back a whole lot of places that he ended up dealing with. There's probably some ways that people didn't like the way that he worked, but I do appreciate that he was a very pragmatic man, and when he said he'd get something done, he'd get it done. So I think for us as Western Wards, I think it's something really exciting for us as Te Awamutu Kiki that we could look out for, because I think what it could bring is some massive bling to Kiki that I think is very smart on a trunk line. That just needs to be revived well. And I know the 2 elected members sitting at this table that sit with me, I know are very keen at making sure that that trunk line has all the bling that it can have to make sure that we can stop and get people to create economy and have a great experience here in our Te Awamutu Kiki. So that was a long way, but I can't express how cool that hui was. Yeah.
Cool, no, it's certainly an exciting project that they've got underway. Any other questions? No, I haven't got anything either, Dale Marie, but just to say Thank you very much for giving up your time to come and give us the opportunity, for keeping us updated in your space, and for always welcoming us and making yourself available if we do need to korero with you or have a little hui. We know you're there. So kia ora.
Tēnā tātou, pōmari.
And pōmari to you too. Right, so can I please have someone to move that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board receives the verbal presentation from Māori Ward Councillor Dale Marie Morgan? Dean, second Shane, all in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, there's a bit of competition on the floor tonight. I've never seen them move so fast. Okay, we now move on to item 6, and Melissa's there ready to go. Look out, Melissa, they're pretty quick tonight. So we need to refer to pages 14 to 20 on our agenda, which is an update on the long-term plan. So Melissa, I will hand over to you to outline the highlights. We've had a busy wee period, June, the beginning of July, and then just the other day, August. So with further ado, it's all yours.
Great, thank you. So yes, we have had a busy wee period, still very much focusing on our review of council's levels of service though. So that has been the focus of the workshops since June, or since the end of June. So we've had a couple of workshops with our elected members. So I guess just in terms of the process that we went through, just as a bit of a recap, we first asked elected members, I guess, kind of the areas of where they would like staff to focus in terms of understanding a little bit more detail, or areas where they would like to consider possible changes to levels of service. That essentially created a long list for staff to then go away and investigate further. And I just raise this because that then makes up the content that you see in the body of the report. So if anybody's wondering why particular services have been pulled out, that is where they've come from. And then you'll see that there is an approximate cost. And then at the last workshop, we sought feedback from elected members against the kind of proposal for changes to those levels of service. So that was sort of a rough process that we went through. As I say, still very much conversations with elected members have still very much been focused on levels of service, but we are sort of nearing to the end of that process. We will be looking to come out for community engagement on those at some point. At the moment, I think we're looking at about October. We're very much still in the planning phase for that. So if the board has any ideas or thoughts around how we might be able to engage with the community on that, or similarly, if there's anything that the board would like in terms of being able to help you have conversations with people when you're out and about in your community, then it'd be great if we can hear that. Not necessarily now, but obviously happy for anybody to flip me an email or via Kirsty. So that's that. And then just the other thing I want to touch on is that other part of the workshops have been focused on our financial policy. So this is the rates remission and treasury management policy, and feedback from elected members was that they were largely fit for purpose. So that's kind of a summary of where things are at or have been over the last few months. Happy to take questions.
Cool, thanks, Melissa. Seeing as 3 of us were at the workshops, hopefully we asked our questions there, but is there anything that has come to mind since? Jill, is there anything that you wondered about from Melissa's or my comments?
Yeah, thank
regarding
you.
that?
Yeah, just reading the report. So I think it's a good idea that you just said, Melissa, that we can go and talk out in the community about different things for feedback. For example, one of the things was reducing the school holiday programs, which I know a lot of people would be upset about. So it'd be good to get feedback on that. But other things that I've seen in there to do with playgrounds are things that I've talked about before and which I thought was positive things to save us money, and they're in there, so I'm delighted about that. But I think it is good, like you just said, to go out into the community and talk about different things. For example, the holiday programs, and see how people feel about that, because I know a lot of people use them, and I've actually sometimes thought we could have more holiday programs than we do have. So, and I wouldn't have thought that that was a huge big cost involved there. So, because the staff are already working there. So, but no, to go out into the community and talk some more, I think that's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you for your work you've been doing.
Okay, well, if there's no further questions, thank you, Melissa, so much for being available to speak to us tonight. I'm sorry that we're 3 other community board members down currently, but if they have any questions, I'll get them to let you know. Let's move that the Cambridge, hang on, that should say Te Awamutu Kihikihi Community Board. Got a little tiny fix up there. Receives a report of Daisy Wills, Strategic Policy Advisor, titled 2027 to 37 Long-Term Plan Project Update. I have someone to move that? Jill, second. Dean, all in favour? Against? Carried. Right, we now move on to item 7, which is an update on the Simplifying Local Government Head Start proposal. Don't know if there's anything simple about this at all. However, it was on pages 21 to 56. There was some fairly good reading in there, and I would like to just take the opportunity to congratulate everybody that was involved in putting that, Katie and the team, and everybody else that was involved in putting that proposal together. There certainly was a lot of work, and I would just like to reiterate 3 months was a very tight time frame to come up with finding buddies, answering the criteria and doing what you guys had to do. So thank you. From me personally, by and large, I'm pretty happy with where it's currently sitting. And I think it is important that we at least have an opportunity to have a say rather than sitting back and letting the government tell us what to do. But I will hand over to William, who is here to talk to that report. Thank you, William.
Thank you. Through the Chair, Councillors, it's a privilege and a pleasure to again be here giving you an update on the Head Start proposal. You've got my report. Take it as read. Have you got any questions that you would like to ask of me?
Yeah, I may be reading it wrong, and I've had people query it with me as well. So people who look in the newspaper and people who look on Facebook, and it looks a little bit, there's just one query, main query. So when the council put their proposal to the government and with the area that was covered, they included Taupo, but Taupo are saying they don't want to be with us. So is it then up to the government to decide where Taupo would be?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So, William, Popal had decided to do the backstop option, did they?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, yeah, because I had seen they had
wasn't-
been going to go with Rotorua as well.
Yeah, from memory, it was a 7-6 split.
Oh, okay,
so
well,
it
that was
wasn't-
close.
And so unlike Hamilton, which was much more defined, so there, the only people that voted in favour of proceeding to Head Start was the mayor, the 2 Māori ward councillors and Councillor Strange. So there was 4. So again, but the criteria allowed that if you had the majority of councils that encompassed within your proposal, then that allowed you to effectively bring in or the possibility of others.
And then Hamilton, what was their change of heart? Because I know initially, there'd been discussion about Hamilton with Waikato and us, and then there'd been some Waikato part of us.
So Hamilton City Council went through a number of proposals that they were considering as part of their investigation. They were unable to find willing partners to any of the proposals that they were considering. So, for example, just an exclusive pairing up with Waikato District wasn't suitable in the eyes of Waikato District. They felt that a larger proposal, and that also then ticked off the other criteria that government had clearly said in their proposal they wanted to see: the importance of effectively catchment management, which is, undertaking the roles of regional council, which are very complex, and there's a lot of understanding of what regional council actually does, which is now becoming more evident. The importance of treaty responsibilities. Iwi were very clear that they wanted to see their current treaty settlements, which naturally sit around waterways and catchments, to be respected as well. So that's why Hamilton found themselves in a position where the options that they were keen to pursue were sole proposals that no one else was prepared to work with them on, in that way. So, and that's fine. That's the natural part of the investigation. Again, noting it was a very tight time frame.
No, it certainly was, and I think that it's important for us as community board to keep reminding people that this wasn't a council-driven initiative. It's government, and that they need to make sure when it comes time to vote in November that they ask the respective parties, what is their plan for unitary councils, and ask those hard questions of our government, because I've actually had a few people think that, why are council doing this? And I'm like, whoa, this was put on us. We had no choice.
And these are just proposals. So they've yet to be ratified by MCERT, which is the new super ministry that government has formed up. And should government determine that a proposal is worthy of further consideration, that's that piece of work between September and we think March, I would imagine at the latest April, where a much more fuller understanding of what the entity would look like. That's where much deeper consultation with community. So this was really an opportunity to say who is interested in doing something different at a greater scale. So it was really I heard it being described, it really allowed a conversation to begin rather than it being the end of a determination. So it's very much in that very, very first stages.
Yeah. No, good. Thank you, Shane.
So originally, when we talked about this, we were wanting a one Waikato voice.
Yes.
And we were wanting a proposal which didn't break up the regional council.
Correct.
Because it doesn't, for us, it didn't make any sense.
Yes.
So this is like a compromise.
Yes.
Are we sort of communicating to government to make it clear that although we've come with this proposal, it was not what we think is ideal for the Waikato? Is that part of the communication? In the hope that they would see some common sense?
Yeah. I mean, the central government was very aware of the various options that were being considered in the Waikato. It was noted that it is a very large territorial authority by land mass, many distinct communities of interest, but they were aware that there were desires to see effectively a single unitary authority reflecting that of the Waikato Regional Council as it is at the moment. Whether that plays any further influence on what they determine a successful proposal would look like, well, that would be a matter for officials and for ultimately cabinet, who will have to make a determination.
Yeah, watch the space. There's lots to be done still going forward. I also just would like to acknowledge, I particularly was very pleased to see the very strong influence and desire that we have local voice. I think that is really important, and especially to us as a community board. And also, I was really delighted to see a bit of pushback on the financial side of things, suggesting that the government provided some financial support and other just wraparound supports if they're expecting this work to be done, because it's not really very fair on our ratepayers to be expecting them to effectively be paying twice, I suppose, you know, in a way that they're having to pay rates and paying tax. So I was pretty stoked with that too. So has anyone got any other questions for William? Seeing we have him right here at our convenience.
So William, are you thinking by March, April, we should sort of know what's
No,
happening?
no, we should, so the current process they've given is that, so the submissions closed on the Sunday night. Monday morning, MCERT officials started working immediately on the collection of proposals that had been submitted. I would, noting that we've only got a limited, I think it's only about 6 weeks left of work and before we have to rise for campaigning for the general election. I would be expecting that it would get very close to having some sort of an indication or at least an update from officials as to where they see things going. But though the real work will go from, it was intending to go from September through till March. So they'll need to be determining which proposals they see as having potential and then going from there. So yeah, there's going to be potentially a very busy second half of the year that we'll be doing. And really, through the chair again, I'd make the point that with the comment about local representation, despite the very wide range of differences that councils had across the region, that one theme of the importance of good, strong local voice resonated. So I would say there's, as much as there are differences, I think there's a lot of fundamentals that actually, you know, are consistent across the, you know, all councils. So I'd take heart from that. Yeah, it will be a hard piece of work, but I do think it's a viable one and one that can be achieved.
That's great, because I definitely think it's important, you know, unlike a city where they're a lot, they're more similar, aren't they? Even though you might have various boards within, say, like Auckland, that have got, what, 12 boards, they're still a city, it's still
And there is a real opportunity
similar.
here to sort of design something very bespoke, which is why then the legislation would come in at the second half, or sorry, the March, April of next year, to allow then these special unitary authorities to form. So there's a real opportunity to really have your hand firmly on the tiller by being involved in Head Start, as opposed to taking the backstop option where you allow that voice and that decision making to be enacted by others. So, yeah.
No, it's certainly going to be interesting. Thank you, William.
Right, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so can I please have someone move that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Board receive the report of William Durning, Principal Advisor, titled Simplifying Local Government Head Start Proposal. Shane, second. Jill, all in favour? Against? Carried. Awesome. Right, so we now move on to our discretionary grant funding criteria for the remainder of the triennium. This was on pages 57 to 69. My lovely thing has closed on me. We're going to take this as read, but we do need to, I think, possibly go through each of these criteria and make sure we're happy with them. I did make a note of a couple of things that I had noticed. Except for they seem to, oh no, there it is. They've fallen off. So while I'm flapping around finding that, does anybody got any comments in general or would like to see anything change in the criteria? Close in a minute. Shane, sorry, might help if I look.
Yeah, I'd like to see lots of changes, but well, let's just start. So, I mean, I found that process that we had last time very difficult because everyone looked at it completely different. And I think we should be looking at it strategically, like we have a strategy, what we want to achieve for Te Awamutu, so that that should be top of mind when we choose things. And the second thing is, when we're spending ratepayers' money, we need to ensure that as many ratepayers as possible benefit, not just 5 people in the community. Like last time, there was, 5 people, or even less than 10 people were benefiting from something, when we could have 2,000 people benefiting because of some other thing. So, and each member of the committee had different views on how to do it. And I just think we need to be a little bit more strategic, and we need to ensure that the ratepayers' money is, the ratepayers themselves are benefiting. We're not a charity. We need to think about the big picture. That's my view.
Dean?
Yeah, thanks, Ange. I'm agreeing with Shane in principle. I think the idea that instead of just turning up and sort of, saying how much we want and having an averaging, I wasn't at this, but the last one, but that has gone on for a number of years since I was on the community board. And I agree, it's not very strategic. It would make more sense to me if we discuss the relative merits of the projects or the applications and came up with some sort of agreement of what we thought was going to be best for Te Awamutu and Kihikihi and Kihikihi, and then voted then on the amount of money we wanted to give it. Because I think if you give everyone sort of an average to make it sort of look like we're trying to keep everyone happy, you've got the risk that some things aren't actually going to be done very well. And it would make more sense, I think, for the good things to be able to be done well. So, yeah, I'd be quite open to a refresh on how we approach that.
So how do you see that changing the criteria that we've got here? So what we're wanting to look at first and foremost is the criteria for those people filling in the form. So what is that criteria? Are we wanting to add, for example, that unless you are going to impact a minimum of 1,000 people, you won't be considered?
I don't think we can guarantee that one way or the other, but $5,000 as a maximum level of funding, I think we could review that.
Keeping in mind that over the last few years, we keep getting, any big amounts that we get have predominantly been for painting and capital fix-up type jobs. And we do only have $25,500. But, this is, I'm just pointing out things to be mindful of.
Yeah, and I'm only saying that because when the really good thing comes along one year, we all go, wow, that would be fantastic. What a big difference that would make. And then we can't fund it because we put a $5,000 limit in there.
True.
So
So on that.
it may not happen very often, but when it does and you can't do it, that would be disappointing as well, especially if there's not many other avenues.
Okay, so then would you like to drop off? Or let's, because I've said we need to sort out the criteria, let's go through these, and if there is anything that you think needs to be added to advance what you're suggesting, we'll then look at what we could add. Sound okay? Right. Okay, so first up we had one, only not-for-profit groups, clubs or organisations can apply for funding and must be providing a local community or welfare service for the benefit of the wider Waipa community. i.e. not a private club or business. Are we okay still with that? Don't want to modify that. We'll just put a little tick by that for now. Yes, no?
Point you spoke about the benefit of the TA Kihikihi community. So this noting this is the wider Waipa community. Is there anything, I guess, specific to this community? I
Well,
guess?
because we look after Kekapuku, we can't, you know,
Okay.
like, it's
Right.
our, this
Yeah.
refers to our
Yeah.
jurisdiction. It's
Yeah.
not like, it's, hi, Liam. It's great to have you here. Perfect timing, actually. So, yeah, this already does, there is in the notes, further down, only groups that have a base Te Awamutu, Kihikihi ward or Kekapuku subdivision. So that covers that off further down. So we're roughly okay with one, because I just want to try and go through each of these so that we're not trying to, when we're trying to approve them, we're not flummoxing around going, oh no, I want to change that halfway through. Yep,
What
Dean?
happens though if a business comes to us with a proposal that, but it's not it's a
Like what you were when you were doing the,
stage pass, technically, I suppose, as a business, and I was doing free events for the community using that. So how do we approach that if it was a business that came forward and said, we can do this with some funding, and there's nothing in it for them, except that they might have the whatever it is they want to do, they might have the the manpower, the expertise to do it. So
thoughts?
so instead of it being not-for-profit groups, clubs or organisations, maybe it should be that anyone can apply, but they're not to make profit out of it. So it's you know what I mean?
What does everybody else think about that?
I like it the way it is, but yeah.
Liam, what are your thoughts? Did you get the gist of that?
So Dean, do you think there's some businesses that aren't applying because of that wording, and they would do something for the community for free, so they're not actually making a profit? So do you think that's stopping people doing that, or is that your view?
Well, possibly. So let's take the Regent Theatre, for instance, which is a business.
The trust would be applying to us, so they totally could apply using the Regent Theatre as an example, and have done. We've supported Misty Flicks for them in the past.
True. What if it was, yeah, they don't exist anymore. They might come back though. if you
Something
really
like
give them
that.
money. Yeah, so what if they were there and they wanted to do something that was sort of like their core business, but they wanted to do it as a community event or a community thing that was not for profit for them, but they could provide it for the community and there was some benefit to the community. We've sort of excluded them because they're a business.
But with $25,000 in ratepayers' money, I don't believe there's any, I don't know, William, this is a hairy one that I didn't see coming. Do you know if there's any criteria around, when council provide money like that, as to whether they can provide it to a business that's doing, like how do we prove that the business is doing it as a not-for-profit as well?
The proving part, I would maybe frame it for you to reflect and consider how realistic is it that you're going to have the situation that you've described come into being. So if over the last period of time you've only had one entity that is no longer, coming with this sort of a petition, are you trying to sort of cover off that one event in 100, or are you wanting to try and incentivize the vast majority of charitable not-for-profit entities to come about and being, because again, you could have a commercial entity who says, I will support separately a not-for-profit to, bring into effect something that benefies the local community and encourage them to be coming in their right to council for support. So that would be the only thing I would maybe offer as a reflection for you to consider.
That's all right. I just, I don't know what I imagine it might be. And actually Backstage Pass didn't apply for funds. That was the trust I had for doing free events. So it wasn't the business, but, I don't know what it could be. It could be, a paint company saying that they'd like to start a project to do certain things in the town, but
What I do know is of all of the funding applications I've ever done, I've never struck another organisation that provides funding that does funding for business, like the, like looking at Lotto or the pub charities and things like that. They generally need it to be an incorporated society or a charitable trust to be able to apply for funding, and for the small amount that we've got. And that's my leaning, but
Yeah,
Shane?
and the business chamber used to be the vehicle for people to apply when businesses came and they had an idea, and we would just put it
through the business
through the chamber.
Yeah.
But, so
and
there's ways around it. That's the point.
There absolutely is. And we've got the Waipa Community Trust as well, that if it was a really big project, we could use that vehicle and they could apply via the Waipa. I just think it complicates things for me personally, but Liam?
Yeah, I suppose my view is that businesses, I'm not sure about the example that Dean's talking about, but businesses should generally, use their profits for stuff like that. And so I wouldn't support adding businesses, would be my position.
Right, so good conversation, but we'll go back to leaving that one as it is. Number 2 was applications will not be considered for expenses or events that have already occurred. So that's just retrospective. 3, failure to return an accountability form may jeopardise any future funding your organisation applies for. Now, I just need to check in with everybody, because on the actual form, it says applications will not be considered if the accountability form due from the previous year has not been submitted. So we just have a little bit of a mismatch. So do we want to stick with May, or do we want to stick with what is written in the document that says will not? I know when we discussed it last time, we came to May because sometimes there's some very genuine reasons why it hadn't come in, and that just gave us the ability to have that final discretionary input. But if we want to tighten it up, we need to either alter the actual application document that goes out or change our recommendation. Jill?
So my comment there would be that other years when I've questioned a little bit of this is that even though the people get a grant and they get something to say, you've got to fill in an accountability form or you're not going to be able to get it again, the person on the board who might have received the money, they could have had a change in committee and they haven't filled that form in. Nobody chases it up. So that committee don't, and council don't chase it up either. So I would like to see that if 12 people get that money, somebody on the council at some stage within 10 months or 12 months chases it up and just does a quick phone call or an email. But that's not ever happened. So I still think it could say, I think may not be considered as fair enough, because you could have had a committee change, and some committees change each year, and they might not have realised the accountability form hasn't been done. So sounds a bit nicer, but I also think it would be good if somewhere along the line we could get a person to be able to chase up.
Yeah, but that's
that
not
as
part of
well.
our
I know,
criteria,
yeah,
but it's a
yeah,
good
yeah,
point. So we'll ask Debs about that. And I think they have been more recently, to be fair. So hopefully, or we may be able to help them if they're a bit short on that too. But any other comments around the may or have to, Liam, and then Shane?
Yeah, I remember discussing this last time.
Mm.
My view is that it should be, will not be. I think that if they're getting ratepayers' money, they should be filling in these accountability forms. If there's a change in members on the committee, I understand that. I wonder if it was on the forms, if it's a new member and they're going to fill in the form for this round, if it says that they're on the form, you'll not be considered. If you haven't done an accountability form, maybe then they'll think, oh, have we done one? That should be an action on us to actually go and do one now. So maybe that will be the kind of trigger point for them to do it when they're applying for the next one, if it says will not be on the application form.
It definitely is there, but maybe we just need to highlight it more.
Yeah, I'm definitely strongly will not. You know,
So there's
ratepayers' money, accountability.
I will not, and I'm not sure what Jill, I think Jill, they do follow up. I mean, I can remember being chased for forms because I'm not very good at them. Weren't they? No, well, they have in the past chased them up. And also, if you have a situation where a group, because of changes in various things, can't fill out a reconciliation form, you sort of got to wonder whether we should be giving them money. Like, how organised are they in their systems in a way? You know, I know it's tricky for small groups, but all the same, we're giving money and they need to follow the rules. So yeah, will not.
Okay, then item 4, we have only groups, clubs or organisations that have a base in Te Awamutu and Kihikihi ward or Kakapuku subdivisions can apply, brackets, area covered by the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi board. Are we happy to stick with that so we're not getting big organisations or places from Cambridge, etc. applying? Yep. Number 5, that applications will not be considered from lobby groups, personal or commercial gain for professional sports.
That's not on here, you missed one.
You've missed the one before it. The maximum level of funding.
No, I haven't got it on here. It should do. No, it's not on this one. No, I'm reading off the run sheet. So the run sheet's just a little bit different. Hold on.
Sorry, I'm reading off the diligent, and it's not in, that's
Oh.
not in diligent either.
Oh,
So what are you?
it is on
reading?
my diligent. So how come you got a
I
different
don't
one?
know, I don't know. Oh, I'm on the minutes, actually, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
But I've been given, yes.
Okay, so we should have, yes, that the maximum, yep, so 5, I'm going to jump over to our agenda. That applications will not be considered from, oh, did that one? Oh, actually, we've got, the one before that was that the maximum level of funding that can be applied for is $5,000, excluding GST. So on that note, Shane, do we want to
We've
leave
just
it
increased that,
open?
haven't we? Because didn't it used to be 2,500 and
Yep, we increased it to
to
5.
5,000.
Yep, but if there is an appetite to just leave it open again, we can.
I think it should be $2,000, not 5, and then you get more people who can have some money. I didn't agree with it going up last time and I still don't agree.
Okay, so Jill's not keen on the 5. Where's everybody else sitting? Because we've got to come to an agreeable solution to pass this for the criteria? Liam,
I think five's fine, but don't have a strong view.
Shane and Dean, you guys had the strongest
I mean,
opinion.
to me, you can't do much in today's for anything less than about that amount, really. So I'm still happy with 5. If they want to come with 2, they can, but.
Okay, Dean, you're on that, so we'll leave that, okay. And then item 6 was that we've already agreed to about the lobby groups, we're okay with that?
Yeah.
And then part C is that we agree to hold 1 funding round per financial year for distribution of discretionary grant funding for the remainder of the triennium. So we'll just do 1 round instead of multiple ones like what we had before. Now, I just need to quickly check that Deb's had made a couple of suggestions, and I just wanted to check with you about those. I wasn't so keen on them. Where were they? Not-for-profit funding.
Is it the
Oh,
operational expenses? isn't it?
Yep.
Not
So,
eligibility?
yeah, so do we want to add not funding operational expenses or eligibility, look at the eligibility of applicants that have already received council funds in the current financial year? I'm quite happy to leave those out, but thoughts? Because I know ones say like the Te Awamutu band sometimes ask for like there's a couple of places that ask for operational expenses because it's often hard to get operational things covered if they're struggling. Last time we were pretty lucky and most things were pretty much capital, but there is sometimes the odd organisation that's a bit tight. But that kind of brings us back to that bigger picture of how many people are they helping as well. But we can address that, but that's not part of the criteria unless we want to add that. So that would be another one if we're going to set a limit in the criteria saying you must be able to help a minimum of X number of people to be considered. So would we like to add that? Because I know that's something that was raised. So where would you see your minimum?
10 people were benefiting from it.
I can't remember what the 10.
There was
10 one was.
brain injury.
Oh, but we didn't end up giving them any
Yes,
money,
we
did
gave,
we? Or did.
we give everyone a little bit of money, which is what annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah.
We've got to be more strategic and focused instead of trying to make everyone happy.
Yeah, I'll come back to how we do that, but I just want to first nail the minimum number. Is there anybody else that would like to see a minimum number of people as part of our criteria? No? Okay. Liam,
Would that
comment?
be a minimum number to apply, basically?
Yeah, so
within a minimum
your project or your organisation helps a minimum of 200 people to be able to apply for this fund.
I don't, because my point I made before, I think if we change our process a little bit, which is well, not what we're discussing, but we could bring those into the consideration before we make our decisions, rather than just going
Then
through
limiting
and
it. Yep.
That's
Yep.
how I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand
Shane?
what you're saying, Dean. And, when I was talking about the criteria, I was talking about someone who's making decisions to give money. But to be fair on the people that are applying for it, if they knew that, when we look at them, we are going to consider these criteria, then shouldn't we tell them when they apply, because then they won't apply and that'll.
What about if we said something like weight will be given to organisations, events, projects that facilitate or help larger numbers of our community? Did you get that? Because don't expect me to say it twice.
Sorry, is that gonna be recorded in the criteria to apply?
Yes, yeah, so just as a,
Yeah.
indication that that will have some weight, and that may, for some organisations, go, oh, or they may still apply.
And then just to push that a little bit further, and if it meets the strategy of the Te Awamutu Kihikihi Community Board, refer to the website so they can read what our strategy is. And
Oh, that's getting complicated. Okay, what have you got?
Think about how
Okay, I'll come back to that in a sec.
So
Oh, sorry, you might even say tonight's deliberation, you know, how can we demonstrate that this has had a significant impact on a large number of people? But it does, but we don't have a huge number of people here tonight. So you've just got to be careful that you're not boxing yourself into a situation where it's hard for you to.
and just to also be clear that the benefit, you won't know the benefit
No.
derived until the event has occurred.
No.
If it's an event, by way of example.
it was very clear how many people were going to be affected. Like if it's a Santa parade, there's going to be thousands along the street. Or if there's someone wants to do a mural on a wall, the whole town benefits versus 10 people with brain disorders or something like that. You know, it was pretty clear to see.
That's then in your deliberations. You can
Yes.
you can debate
Yeah.
that, and you can apply that sort of rigor without having to have it predetermined. So and again, I'd come back if the vast number of your applications fit the criteria that you're wanting, as opposed to the ones that the exceptions you're having, that's you don't necessarily want to box yourself in too much. You want to have it open so you can debate and in some cases have a good thorough disagreement and then come to a decision.
I totally agree, because some people, like for Shane was giving an example, if there was a Christmas parade with thousands of people and brain injury Waikato, only 50 people, where do you go? But some people, I probably would actually support brain injury Waikato before the other, because I know the other can go to different places to get funding, but there might be one organisation that can only go to us. They can't go to other places for some reason. So each one has to be done individually. Yeah, on its merit. Yeah.
Yeah, I do hear what you're saying, to try and give people an indication that that's what we're going to be looking for. So, and I definitely hear what William's saying about being careful that we don't box ourselves in. However, do we have, what's the right word that I want, how much information are we best to put forward to make sure people are aware that these will be some of the things that we are going to consider?
And mindful that it's a maximum of $5,000.
Dollars, true, that.
And you'll have a group of people that will be mindful that 5,000 up to a maximum of $5,000. The ask, I would say, would be quite simple, and in their minds clear. So the more complex you make the expectations for a sum of 5,000, you could potentially run the risk of the causes that you do want to come forward looking at and saying, it feels a bit hard for us to articulate a good cause that would have support. So that's the balance. It's
What does everybody think? Would you like to, that we park it, or do we want to have this put into the criteria? I mean, it's,
Just make it simple. I mean, that'll be the debate. That's the debate that we have between us, because, you know, last time I had a completely different view than a lot of people, and I was always sticking to my guns on that one.
Yep.
But then what it ended up was that everyone got a little bit of something. And to me, that was terrible. And it was such a public
and that's the
thing
way
as
it's
well.
got to be.
Well,
We can't change that.
I
That
don't
is,
know, I'll debate that as well, but
yeah,
anyway,
but, well,
that's
we have to be transparent. We have to have those conversations up front and be transparent and have them as part of our meeting. So the only part we can discuss in committee is the financial position of the various organisations, if we've got any queries around those finances, but otherwise, we do need to have those discussions.
Yeah.
Right, so basically, let's have a show of hands that because we've got to keep moving on, so we don't want to put that in. We're going to leave it out again? Okay, right, okay. Yes, Dean.
Did we actually discuss the one about applications from lobby groups and action and pressure groups, or did it just, did we discuss it? Oh, okay.
Yes, we
I
did.
thought it just came up and then we fumbled around finding.
No, I had done that first, but then we realised that what you had was out of order.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Well, my view is that that one and the one that I was discussing the first time around about who can apply sort of cover the same ground. And if we have one that says that applications won't be considered if there's personal or commercial gain or for professional sports, once again, I go back to the first one and say, why can't a business apply if it's not making commercial gain? Because it's covered by that.
The reason that this was included, now I've got to remember correctly, was it was like a breach thing for us, because that came as a staff recommendation about the lobby groups and
Yes.
action groups, so.
Yeah. So I don't have a problem with it. What I'm saying is, because that's there, our first one, we were saying who we will take applications from. Once again, I'm not sure. And how do we identify a private club? What's a private club?
Where's a private club?
Yeah.
Not a private club or business. So what would you consider a private club?
A club that's run by themselves and isn't an incorporated society
Okay.
and
Yeah.
has their own members but is run as a business, basically.
Yeah. See, what I think we're doing is, though, some clubs come to us and they want money to help them operate their club for their membership, but other people come to us because they want money because they want to do something in the community to benefit other people in the community outside their organisation. What
Yeah,
I'm saying, if that club or business want to do something that's outside and it benefits people outside there, it's not for their customers, it's not for their club members, it's for the public.
no,
in
but at the
general.
end of the day, how many people are there for us to do this? And in the 12 years I've been on the community board, the tree thing with you was the only one that was kind of sat outside. And so we took it on as a community board project to enable that funding for lighting up the tree, using that as an example. So in the entire time, and we used to have 2 rounds, we've never ever struck this before. And so we've got a little pot of money, a maximum of $5,000. And my feeling is that they can go somewhere else and find some money rather than it coming from us.
Right.
You still have this criteria though, is businesses might, wouldn't have applied if you had a criteria like this.
No, that's right.
Right.
But we've never, outside of, like I've never been asked, oh, could this business come and apply for money from the discretionary fund? So, and like I mentioned before, of all the years that I've also done applications for funding, it's not-for-profit charitable trusts that are able to apply for funding. So,
Yeah, I still think it shouldn't be businesses. They should be excluded, but I'm just saying.
yeah,
I don't think we know who would, whether businesses would apply if they're excluded in the
My-
criteria.
yep, I agree, Liam. And I also think that, being mindful of the time, let's keep an eye out for it. And if it comes up again, that we can consider it next time. If there becomes a need, and that we're aware of it, then maybe we can revisit it. But I just think for the meantime, we just keep pressing ahead with what we've got. I did just want to quickly come back to those other couple of things that, where did we sit on funding the operational expenses? Do we want to leave those for us to choose to or not choose to,
Yeah,
as
fine
opposed to
with,
excluding them?
fine with not including OPEX.
To not include them? So you'd like a criteria that says we won't consider OPEX?
Sorry,
It for us to choose.
not including additional criteria to say don't include.
Okay.
operational expenses.
So don't
That-
include it.
That's
Don't
the
make any
lawyer
changes.
talk, isn't it, eh? You've been at court. Thanks, Liam. And then are we happy for applicants that have already received council funds in the current fund? Just curious, William and Kirsty, do you interpret that as any council funds from anywhere? Because previously we have allowed that if, like just say Rotary, for example, they might be applying to us for a specific project, but they could also be running an event,
Yes.
in which case they would apply to the event
Yes,
fund. So they're two very separate
Yes,
things.
that's right.
So we've always been happy to support that.
They wouldn't be able to apply.
No,
I take it.
that-
If they've received any funding from
That's,
council,
yeah.
they would not be able to apply
Yeah.
under, if you
Under-
included this.
If we
As-
included
if-
it.
If you included it
Yeah,
as it's written,
that's-
it is a
yes.
single funding
Opportunity,
opportunity,
yep.
full stop.
So that would mean they would just ask us. So how do we see that? That if an organisation, so, the murals could be another one, that it would mean that they could only choose to apply from us, not from the arts thing or from other pockets of money that are available potentially to the different things that they could be involved in. Or as I say, if Rotary, instead of using us to apply for the Christmas parade, they can still apply to the events fund because it is an event. And then they could also apply to us for another project potentially.
Yeah, I'm fine personally with not adding that as an additional criteria. I seem to recall last time when we talked about this, possibly it was partially solved by, they have to identify in the application form, don't they, that they've
Yep.
received council funds. So in my mind, that it gives us as the decision makers a layer of discretion as
Yeah.
well to consider that. So that would be
Yep, okay.
satisfactory in my view.
Cool. So we're okay with that? Righto. So pretty much then we're happy with our criteria. And we were happy to only hold the one, we didn't actually answer the holding the one funding round. Were we happy with that? That we're not having multiple and little ones, Dean?
The only problem with holding one funding round per year is that everyone has to be organised about 18 months in advance. Now, well,
No, we would have had a previous one within that time.
no, you have to, but you got to know what you're doing in time to get your application in.
Yep.
For something that you're then going to hold during the year, that between one funding round and the next, because you've got to spend it in that time.
Yep.
So for some organisations, and once again, I think for some of the things I was doing, for instance, opportunity comes up during the year to do something, but the funding round's already gone, so you miss out. Especially for events and things, because you don't always know what and when something's going to be available. So that's just a point, but from experience.
Yep. Shane?
So what typically happens? Once, twice?
So in the last two times, we've moved to this single funding round. And the reason behind that was there were a couple of things. One was to make it fair that everybody who applied at the same time, and didn't get, because we had more money left over for a random one to come in, that they were going to get theirs approved. So one that I can remember very clearly was when the Puhui Hall needed to do a feasibility study, and because we had not allocated, you know, the bulk of our funding, we actually had quite a big pie, and they required $10,000 for their feasibility study, and that entire amount was approved as a one-off application. So historically, we had done a round, held money, and people could come ad hoc and apply, which solved what Dean's saying. Then we went to two, and I thought that worked reasonably well when we had 50,000, but with only 25, we went, no, it's not really a lot of money. We might as well just do it once. And then the other part of the equation is there's a lot of work for the staff to do behind the scenes, to take the applications, to prepare them and check them and get them ready for them to come to us. So there was quite a, you know, we were supporting them as well by doing it the once. So I hear what you're saying, because I kind of miss that little bit of flexibility for people.
Yeah.
However, I'm also mindful that these guys are really under the pump, and there is a lot of work to get it all ready. Go through them all, make sure everybody's put in what they're meant to, etc. The accountability on the back end of it as well. So Shane.
I'm certainly hearing what Dean's saying, and, you know, being out in the community and being part of these groups, you know, they come up with an idea, and then they'll look for what's funding is available, and if they've missed it, that's it. That's the end of it. So yeah, I do sympathise with that, but such a little amount of money we're talking about. It's bloody, you know, we've already wasted too much time talking about $25,000, but yeah, maybe councillors should increase that amount through this long-term plan process. Not sure.
Be nice to go back to our 50,000, because yeah. So in light of that, my leaning is that we leave it at one, especially at the moment, because the team that actually looks after that is really up to the gunnels as well, to support them as well as our community. So we're comfortable with that? Right, so I'm thinking there are a few more things, obviously, that you want to discuss, but I'm mindful of the time. So just on that strategic direction, and, you know, looking at how we're going to actually manage the allocation of the funds. It doesn't need to be part of our criteria, and it can't be, but I'm happy for a, like say 10, 15 minutes to take us through to 7:30 to just be on the same page. So when it comes to October, when the discretionary applications are in front of us, that we are comfortable with how we're going to look at this. So currently, Liam, you've done one funding round, eh?
No, I wasn't at the
Oh, you
meeting.
weren't able to
Yeah,
be there.
I did watch it.
Okay, so we would normally look at the funding rounds. We would individually say, okay, we want to allow this much money, and then that amount is averaged out. So yes, that does sometimes mean that some organisations get less. However, there is still the opportunity for those to be modified and changed on the night. And if any particular person can provide a good case for a particular application, then people do change their mind. I know I have on occasions where I've done, like bits, and then I've gone, actually, no, I agree with Shane, for example. I'm actually going to take it out of there and put it into that pot. So that is definitely there, but is there an appetite to move completely away from any sort of averaging and have a different way of allocating the money? Now's your kind of chance to.
I think last time when we did it, Liam, we invite the people who are applying for it, even though we've read what they've written. We invite them to talk. And last time there were 2 people who weren't there to talk, and they ended up with no money because we had questions and queries. And because of that, there wasn't the funding for them. But I also think I like the way it's done because we're all individuals, but we're all representing the community. So I try to do it when I'm thinking of how much money I think they need and how much other people need. And I guess it's where I've been in the community and I see where the needs are. So I'm not doing it as Jill Taylor, I'm doing it representing those people and seeing their needs. So.
Dean?
Thank you. I'd like to see us have a discussion where we can make some arguments if we want to before we start voting on the individual ones rather than going through each one and then doing it. So I don't know, you had people coming along speaking. Did they just speak all at the start and then reconsider?
So the public forum, they have the opportunity to speak
Yes.
to their application.
Yeah.
And then usually the way I've run it is, like we'll go through each application and say, righto, this is the application, this is what they want their funding for, and we have a discussion about the application, and then we go along and say, right, how much money are you going to give them? And then those are averaged, and that's the amount of money that they end up with. So if Shane chose to give them 0, then that reduces how much they get.
I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to have the discussion for the whole suite of applications in one discussion at the start so the members can make points about some that they have strong thoughts about, for instance.
Before we allocate the money?
Before we
Yep.
allocate any money. So you could say, I personally think that this and this should be supported because, and supported well, and then we have a chance to sway the opinion of the room or not.
Yep.
And you also, on this other hand, you might say, I don't think this group should get any money because of this and this, and you have the opportunity. It'll still balance out. Because they're still individual members. Yep.
But we just allocate the money at the end.
Rather than, because if you go through one at a time, it'll probably everyone will get a bit.
Yeah, and potentially the person at the bottom could
be
disadvantaged.
When we used to do it, we used to go through, we used to give everyone a bit, and then we see how much we've got, and then we used to work out a formula for how much we had and how much we'd allocated, and we'd multiply it by the formula number that we came up with, to take it down or up. So we spend the exact amount, and people are getting like $326.45.
Yeah. I mean, we have given the odd one like that for a photocopier and stuff. So, yep. Does everybody like that idea to have a general discussion about everybody? So if there's anything that I quite like that.
So Dean, before COVID, we would talk around the room and talk very candidly about all this. But since COVID and we're live now, we've just got to be careful what we are saying so we don't upset people. So I think it's great to have a discussion because we've all got different views, and I think that's fantastic. But my question would be, do we do that without the public and then come back into a public meeting and we can still talk?
You're not allowed.
We can't do both?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise it's predetermined. If we have a full discussion about all of the applications outside of this meeting, then when we come and sit down, it's considered as predetermined. So we need to have our discussions here in front of the camera, in front of the public forum.
Can I please ask, just for clarification, do you, when you're looking at the applications at home before you come into the meeting, do you have a checklist that aligns with the criteria, or do you just come in with your own notes that you've kind of prepared, or you just kind of respond on the day? How has it worked previously? I'm just wondering how we can best help you,
Yep.
support you before you coming in prepared.
So the governance team make us up a like a table that says the organisation, how much money they want, whether they had received funding previously, if they've provided their accountability form has come back, and if they have met all of the criteria that we ask for in the application. So that is the initial setup. Then and because of our criteria, they have Debs and Zoe and the team have already determined whether they have or haven't met the criteria. So then what we look at is the content of the application, consider things like how many people is it going to help? How many, for example, look at things like how many times have they applied? How much good does it do for the wider community? And we basically individually, either through community knowledge or asking questions, come up with that. One of the things I would be really keen on us to do is to maybe collate any questions we have prior to the meeting so that we could contact those organisations and have any queries clarified in case they are unable to attend, because obviously a meeting at 6 o'clock doesn't always work for everybody to be able to come. So that might be something, but otherwise I'm not sure if there's anything additional that as staff that you would be able to do. I'm open to suggestions, but I think the way it's done, we're getting good information. Yep. Okay, so we will have our discussion at the start. We will still go out of committee if we need to discuss any financial matters. And as a committee, that we are mindful of our strategic plan and we look at the things and take into account, are these meeting, or assisting us to meet our strategy as well.
So that raises a question, is that a criteria, I guess, or is that an assessment criteria? I mean,
Yeah,
do
we
you
were
want
going to do
have
it
that
as an assessment.
rather than the criteria where
Yeah.
they demonstrate that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I just ask, is there criteria, because we've got this qualification criteria, and then is there an additional list of criteria that we would normally assess it against, or is that the proposal?
That's kind of what, that's
Right.
what we're trying to determine. My only feel, like I hear what you're saying. I just sometimes think, like we're trying to support the community and some of the things they're doing, are we trying to force them to align with what we see as needing to be done?
And even though we want to keep it all local, we will always get somebody who will apply for their organisation and they want to start up in the area and they've got 10 people coming and they want it, but it's actually based in Hamilton.
Yeah, but that's
so
not
I'm just saying,
counting now.
so then we don't, but that will still always seem to try to make its way through. And quite often there's just one that will try to make its way through because they want to start up or they've just started up, but basically they're a Hamilton-based thing, so you'll always get one who'll try to sneak through. So to me, and I just know because I've done it, for 7 years, that you'll always get one and that or no, they're not locally based, you know?
I
so,
don't
yeah.
think we are the same now since we changed that criteria. We used to not have that, so we got a lot more of that. I also want to move on before we approve this, the amount of money we want to set aside for us to be able to use. So I see in the Treasury report that there was $42,000, $10,000 roughly still in applications from the previous round to be dispersed. And it left around about basically $6,500 outside of the 25.5 that we've been allocated this year. So when we're looking at it at an amount, is $6,500 adequate to put aside for us for projects for the next 12 months? Or thinking of our strategic plan, do we want to hold back a little bit more, in which case we would have less than 25.5 to allocate in this next round? Liam?
How, I don't recall the numbers from last time, but assuming it was 25 grand, how tight was it to sort of meet that amount? You know, with people want 40 grand and we could only give 25.
Yes,
or-
so,
Oversubscribed.
yeah.
Yeah, by quite a bit.
Yeah.
or-
Yeah, it was still significant, not as significant as it has been historically, but it was still probably at least close to kind of half again. Yeah, so we've got to be quite ruthless.
Yeah.
Jill?
You're not including the money that we just gave out a couple of months ago. We've still got that left over as well.
That is basically what's left over. That's what's sort of sitting there from leftover, if
From
I've done my maths
Yeah,
right.
no, that's fine. Yeah,
Mm.
because I mean, some of the people who've got their money won't have used it yet.
No, it's not counting
so
that
not
money.
counting that,
No,
that's
no,
what I mean.
no, no. So that money's still sitting there. So the total amount that we've got currently is 42,000 something. Oh, I can
Yeah,
tell you
okay,
exactly.
but yeah.
Yeah, so, and there's about $10,000 still sitting in the holding bucket of people that still need to collect their money. So we do need to follow that up and
Yeah.
find out why they haven't picked it up. Pardon? Yeah. I don't know if it was it? Treasury, hold on. Oh, yes, that's right, it was too. And that Girl Guides and Loving Arms, yeah. So yeah, there are things that we are going to spend anyway. So if you went 42 less the 10,445, left you with 32, which includes the current 25. I worked out roughly that we hold the 6.5 to allocate for us to sit on. But what I wanted to know is, do you think that's enough, or do you want a bit more? If we want a bit more, we're not going to have 25.5 to give out.
Well, I think 25.5's a pathetic number anyway, and so we'll just have to stick with the 6, although I would want a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, okay. So tentatively, we're looking at around about 6. We're happy for that. I will reconfirm that on the night, that that's what we want to hold, because I don't think at this point we can add that as an additional thing to our minutes tonight, but we will be able to on the night of the discretionary fund that we've agreed to hold back some funding. Is there anything else tonight while we have the opportunity under the discretionary funding application that we just want to discuss and have a bit of a heads up so that we've got a direction of what we're going to be looking at when those applications come in?
The criteria thing that I mentioned before,
Mhm.
when was that going to be discussed or talked about, sort of the criteria for how
Oh.
we're assessing these?
So you kind of missed a little bit. I can't remember where you came in, but basically the criteria that is in your minutes, we agreed that Pretty much all of that is standard. That will be the criteria that the applicants need to meet, what we were talking about, with the exception of we're going to change the applications will not be considered if the accountability form from the previous year has not been completed or returned.
No,
So
I
that
think-
was
I
the
think I
only
was here-
change.
I think I was
Oh.
here for that. I was sorry, I was talking
Thought
about
so,
the,
yeah.
that's the criteria, I suppose, for how they get into the process.
Yeah.
But our criteria for assessing the applications and how much they should.
Yeah,
use,
so
just
we-
want to be in that, if we would have a discussion about that, and if we're not going to, that's fine. But
So what we would normally do is it would kind of just happen on the night and we would have that discussion prior and this is what we're agreeing to, but it ends up getting very jumbled. So that was why I wanted to take this opportunity while we were able to talk about the discretionary fund to have a conversation now so that we're a little bit on the same page, but we're doing it within the boundaries of our meeting. So it is fully transparent and there's no predetermined decisions. So basically at this point, we are saying that we're going to have a discussion about all of the organisations and what they're requiring at the start before we allocate any money. When we're considering the applications, if we've got any questions, we're going to collate those so that we can ask the organisations prior to the night, so we're not making any assumptions. We're going to look at, we're going to provide some weight to how many people they are going to help when we're considering the applications, that will have some input. We're going to continue to be able to have that discretionary option around the operational, and we're going to take into consideration, like if there are some that really support where we're going as a group, are we going to give them at the time, look, this is really fitting with our strategic plan. We'd actually like to give that group the maximum amount that we can, because they're helping us as well achieve our goals. Yep, sound all right? But just to give us that initial, so we're on the same page. But please have a think about it, because we have got another meeting between now and then, and we can always include a piece. I can pop in a chair report that gives us the opportunity to raise any discretionary funding applications, but I will need you to let me know so that I can do that. They go out on the 11th of September and they close on the 9th of October, I think was in here. So sound okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So if there's nothing further on the discretionary income, I did go 5 minutes over. Let's move what we have agreed to. So I need to actually use this.
So are you going to put it up? Oh, okay, I can do it. if you
Okay,
want me to
so,
help you.
yep, just remind me when I get, I've just got to go back here.
You've got a new 5 and an
Right.
amended 3.
A new 5. Oh yeah, so
And
then we'll go
amended
6, 7. Okay, just bump me at the time. Right, so can we have someone to move that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board, A, receives the report of Deb's Homes Governance Advisor titled Discretionary Grant Funding Criteria for the remainder of the triennium, and B, agrees to the following criteria for determining applications for discretionary grant funding until the end of the current triennium. These being: 1, only not-for-profit groups, clubs or organisations can apply for funding and must be providing a local community or welfare service for the benefit of the wider Waipa community, i.e. not a private club or business. 2, applications will not be considered for expenses or events that have already happened, brackets, retrospective. 3, failure to return an accountability. No, 3 has changed.
So that will read, applications will not be considered if the accountability form from previous years has not been completed and returned by your organisation.
Okay, item 4 will be only groups, clubs or organisations that have a base in Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Ward or Kikapuku subdivision can apply, brackets, area covered by Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board. And then our new 5 will be
that the maximum level of funding that can be applied for is $5,000 excluding GST.
Oh yeah, that's the same as this one, actually. It was different to that one. Item 6, that applications will not be considered from lobby groups or action pressure groups for personal or commercial gain or for professional sports. And C, agrees to hold one funding round per financial year for distribution of discretionary grant funding for the remainder of the triennium. Someone to approve that? Liam, second Jill, all in favour? Carried. I don't need to do against because you all said aye. Okay, thank you. That was a very worthwhile discussion, and it's good to get us as closely aligned early as we can. Right, so that takes us to the wonderful Treasury report. So let's see what we've got. Page 71 of our pages 70 and 71. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We've got a couple of places that haven't collected their money. So I'll follow up and just check in to see where we're at with those and just why they haven't collected theirs. And then, of course, the pots aren't too far away, and hopefully nor are the heritage signs with a bit of luck. So those things will be, that money will be being spent. Has anyone got any questions or any comments to make about the Treasury report?
If you do your maths, you'll see we should actually have $7,022.12 left over. So I presume that's what we're leaving for ourselves.
Was it 7? Oh. I think I just rounded things around. That might have been why I suggested 6. So we'll just say 6 to 7. So just have a think about that. So when we come to the time, that's around about our figure, whether you think we want more or less. All right. Okay.
Sorry, could someone just explain how we get to that figure?
So our total revenue in our discretionary funding account at the moment is 42,900. There's still $10,445 sitting in the pool, which is allocated funds to committed projects like the pots, etc. And a couple of lots of organisations that haven't picked up their money. Then the 32,500 includes our $25,500 of grants. So when you go 32,500, take away 25,500, it comes to around, I thought I'd got 6,500, but according to Dean, it's 7 something. So my calculator or my finger made a mistake.
Yes.
So that's how we got to that.
Makes sense now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to encourage that if you think that we need more, it's going to mean we need to eat into the 25,500 and we'll have less to allocate. Okay, so can I please have someone to move that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board receives the report of Nada Milne, Financial Accountant, titled Treasury Report for the period ended 31st of July. Jill, second. Dean, all in favour? Against? Carried. Cool. Okay, Chairperson's report. So the first couple of things are just updates. Melissa spoke to the LTP. The pots, as I've mentioned, just have a delay because Transport are trying to work in. Got a comment about that? Yep.
Yeah, I
Or
can
an
update
update?
you on that. So the
Yes.
expectation is September, and
Cool.
the issue why it wasn't July was because the contractor who was going to be doing some road works on the main street and therefore closing the main street, we were going to coordinate with that, but he has not been able to do the work until September, and so Brian will let me know when, and then we'll meet with him, and it'll happen in September sometime. That's
Cool.
what we're hoping
Fingers
for.
crossed.
Yeah.
CBD upgrade, sorry, I missed that. I do want to have a little bit of a discussion about this because I understand we are going to have an opportunity to make some comments about it you know, what projects we want to see included in the LTP. I've had a little bit of a discussion with Paula from KTAB and just asked if they have any particular things that you've already discussed that we can use as supporting evidence from the community. I've also asked the chamber to do the same because I felt that if we could be a united front with members of the community and maybe even just, you know, start to be taking some feedback, we get a good indication that there is community support, because that was something when I spoke to Mike that he said, you know, I want to see that community support for this. So I just was keen to have a bit of a discussion around what you think. So Shane.
Well, I mean, it came from the Awamutu Business Chamber, the original proposal.
Yeah.
And it was very, very clear on that proposal with their PowerPoint slides and everything, exactly what they wanted. So
So we want to use that.
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, and I have shared that with staff at the council. So, I mean, to me, that's the minimum requirement and what we should be advocating for.
Cool.
So it's come from the it's come from the business community, hasn't come.
Okay, so it would probably be a good idea to see if we can get that put on our next agenda, maybe for us to have as a topic that we discuss. And so everybody can see that, because of course, Dean wouldn't have seen it. Jill, you'll kind of remember it, from when we had it last time, and Liam wouldn't have seen it at all. And we revisit that, pull together the comments from, current comments from the chamber and KTAB. And then that's sort of the basis of what we can put forward.
Yeah.
Yep,
So I suggest
start
you
working on it.
contact the CEO of the chamber and
I've done that.
yeah,
so,
and
yep,
ask her
Yep.
to present that. It'll be good practice for her. She hasn't done anything
Oh,
like
you
that
get
before.
Megan to present.
But she's got to start somewhere, so it's a
Oh, yeah,
nice
we could
harmless
do that
place to
too.
start.
Okay. Present the CBD proposal.
KTAB have got a meeting on Friday morning, so I can get the
Yeah.
list from them.
Yeah,
when I'm
I've
there.
actually got some information already
good.
from
Okay.
Paula.
Okay.
But if there's anything extra that the rest of you think of, that would be great. So that was the CBD. Talked about the pots. I did just want to say, I know it's already written, but a special thank you to Jill and John. The Christchurch congregation was stoked with their picnic seat and their other seat that you guys helped get organised and arranged. And yeah, big thank you from all of us for flying the flag and being out there on the ground, doing the doing and making things happen. Really appreciate both of you immensely for that. Urban miners, as you will see there, after 5 years, they're now going to be using the Resource Recovery Centre down at Daphne Street. So that's going to be a bit of a change. We had a cup of coffee and a final wind up at the last one. But again, a big thank you to Lou Brown, who's continuing to pick up the batteries, to John, who also, and Kane, who also attended lots and lots of urban miner events. The Te Awamutu Rotary, who, if they hadn't partnered with the Cambridge Rotary, that our Urban Miners Day would never have happened. And also just to acknowledge Pack and Save for their sponsorship of the batteries, which is continuing. And interestingly, as a result of that partnership, they've actually upped the game and take caps and are really and are continuing to sponsor that whole battery recycling project that we initiated. So I'd have to say, well done, Community Board, and a really great initiative that we got going and have been able to successfully hand over for the community to look after. I've had some meetings, which I'm not going to go back into. Had a workshop. No, that's all of that. So are there any other questions that anyone would had for me? If there's anything that didn't really make sense or that you wanted to query at all? Jill?
Just something that sort of, you've been talking with the comms team, and I know a few times we've talked to the comms team about us having something in the local paper about what the community board members do. And we've been told we can't do that, but they've been having council staff having a little blurb about them. So can we do that now about the community board?
We could ask, because that is on their page, which is different to the paper saying they don't want us to use the column. So that definitely is something we could ask Lisa if in the, what do they call it? Word on Waipa? No, what's the one in the paper called? It's called something else.
It's on Waipa.
What's on Waipa?
Is that in the Te Awamutu news that we're talking about?
Timutu in Cambridge.
Yeah, it's a middle spread, it's a centre spread that they do.
It's
Okay,
got all the
I'll-
councillors' faces down the bottom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, so I will ask about that. Where is the LTP workshop, CBD, POTS, ratepayers, urban miners, meetings? Yes, the strategic plan. Before I get to the strategic plan, I did want to share with you, when we were at the workshop on the 12th of August, and I do want to make a mention of this, it was raised about the community engagement, what's the word I want? Project that's going to be happening. I just can't think of the exact title that Lisa called it.
Strategy.
The comms strategy, the external comms strategy. I think it's actually written here. Yes, external comms strategy, where they said that there is a genuine effort to truly listen. And at that workshop, I couldn't help myself, but I had to say I was really grateful to council, to councillors, that finally they can see what we have been saying for many years. You know, we see that you're engaging, but we need you to listen, and it's important for people to see that their input matters. So it's really, really neat that this piece of work is going to be taking place, and I hope that us as a community board can support that in any way possible that we see that comes up. Because yeah, said I'd almost dance on the tables. I was so excited when I heard that change coming through at that level. So yeah, very exciting. So that leaves us with the final part of the chair report being the community board strategy. Hoping you've managed to read through what we've got there. So I suppose, do we have any changes we want to make before we approve it? Keeping in mind that we would like to keep it as a working document. There are definitely parts, so for example, the priority framework, that is an example of what we could possibly do. We need to do some more work on that. I'm not indicating that that should happen tonight. I think that we probably need to have a couple of sessions where we just get together and modify that to be an exact fit for us. But the basis of the document, are we happy to adopt that as our starting point in our working document going forward? Any thoughts, discussions, comments? No, this is our strategic plan.
Oh, the
I'm talking
strategic plan
about.
still. Oh, sorry.
So the engagement, again, the engagement, community engagement plan is part of our
Yeah,
strategic plan.
yeah.
So, we said that we would create a plan.
Yeah.
So that's an example. This
Yeah.
isn't neither of those, the priority framework and the community engagement,
Yeah.
neither of those are hard and fast.
No.
Lisa is actually working on something that may be more fitting, but I just wanted to sort of give you an idea of where we could go. Another area that we need to nail down is the implementation plan, and exactly for us to start thinking about where our strengths are and what parts of the strategic plan we're going to say, hey, look, that's where I'd be comfortable. I want to work in that space and help drive that particular part of our plan, and what kind of order we're going to attack it. so that we actually are achieving and meeting the goals that we set, that it's not just sitting out the side and we've approved it and then not using it as our working blueprint.
No, I totally agree, because I've read through it all and I thought it was great. Lots of, through the implementation plan, the strategic plan, the engagement framework. And, you know, one of the things you mentioned, which we've talked about before, is the pre-board catch-ups with different groups.
Yep.
So where to from here? Do we start doing like that straight away, or do we need another meeting just to work out when we're going to start doing some of these things?
Yes, I think that tonight, unless there's any major things to the actual strategic plan, we just get on and approve that, and then we come together, because that doesn't have to be something that we discuss at a public meeting. We can do that as a workshop on our own or get together. I think we then come together and start to put that working part of the plan into action, and start working out who's going to do what. So at this point, I'd like to get it approved, and then I'll contact everybody to set a date so that we keep this moving now. Does that sound okay? Yep. Okay, Shane.
No, I think the strategic priorities framework is a good document. I think someone's done some good work. We just need to do a little bit more work on our priorities, and it's a great starting point.
Yeah, and that was just what I
Yeah.
wanted, was a start and an indication of what we could have as a working document like that to help us along.
So just to clarify, to the community board, Shane, you've just referenced that framework, and I think that's provided as a concept
Yeah.
example. If you look at it, the wording perhaps doesn't align to some of the wording in the strategic plan. So as a concept, once you agree and approve the strategic plan, then that work would be undertaken to develop that framework
Yeah.
document.
Exactly, and match it exactly, because it is not quite right. Cool, okay. Well, if everybody's happy with that, can we move that? Firstly, the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board receives the report of Angela Holt, Chairperson, Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board, titled Community Board August 2026 Chair Report. And B, that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board adopt the 2026-29 strategic plan. Jill, second. Shane? Oh, Liam, question in the middle.
Just, I'm looking at the agenda, I just pulled it up, I access it by just going onto the website.
Yeah.
Pulling it up. The item around the chairperson's report doesn't include approving the,
Oh, sorry, I can do them as two separate ones.
So just to be clear, you're correct. It is the reference within the strategic plan is actually within the body of the chairperson's report. So yeah,
Yeah,
we do
so-
it as two separate recommendations.
Okay, so Jill, if you can move, good spotting, Liam, that my report be received, and would we have Shane to second that? All in favour? Against? Carried. And then can I please have someone to move that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board adopt the 2026-2029 strategic plan? Jill, seconder. Dean, all in favour? Against? Carried. Awesome. We have got our strategic plan over the line. Okay, we now move on to item 14, board members' reports from the meetings attended on behalf of the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi community. I'm just going to start at this end. Jill, what have you been busy doing?
Last week, I was invited to the Peace Fountain ceremony, where the Peace Fountain is now going 24/7, and I actually haven't been to have a look at the night lights yet, but that's going to have lights depicting on what's happening in the community. There'll be different colour lights, so that was well represented by council, and Ange and I went along, and RSA veterans and members. So that was lovely to finally see it. And there were members of the Memorial Park Committee there too who were delighted because they'd started their handiwork, which meant the council had to get cracking and finish it all. I've been attending a couple since the last meeting of Kihikihi resident and ratepayers meetings. We've got another one tomorrow night, and that's just talking about what's happening in their community, and we've talked about the alpha being restored, and we've also they've got a hub started. So the hub is not in one place, it's in 4 different places. And I'll share a bit more detail with you in that next meeting, but that's all going really well. And a little bit slow on the heritage sign front for different reasons, but very soon will be. There's just a couple of little things we've got to do, waiting for some information, and then that will all be finished. So we'll be able to let you know at the next meeting that it's all ready. The person who's making the signs is biting at the bit to get the signs made, and the shop owners, etc., are waiting for the signs to go up. So that's not too far away. Thank you.
Oh, well done, Jill, on keeping that ticking along. Shane, dates from council? Shane?
Okay, so on behalf of Dean and myself, it's been 2 months since our last meeting, so there's a little bit here, but I'll just go through it very quickly. Just the high level things that we've been working on is the Waikato Ward is just finalising the documentation for that to be transferred, and that's all gone very successfully. We've done a Lake Kerapiro Reserve Management Plan deliberations, so I think that's landed in a good place with all users of the lake. Quite happy with the outcome so far. We've talked about long-term plans. We've had many workshops for that, and we've also talked about local government Head Start. So they're the sort of high-level ones, but items at council meetings that this board should know about is that the council agreed that 48 Goodfellow Street Reserve will be disposed of. We also received a petition from Awamutu College for a crossing in terms of health and safety. The petition was signed by students and teachers, parents, etc., and that was well received by council, and we will consider that as an option. Council also have looked at the what they call raised safety platforms on the roads, and to look at the work that's been done in the Waipa area, and they've looked at it and they believe that the Victoria in Australia has a great standard for that, and so they're going to adopt that standard, and then they're going to compare our raised safety platforms with that standard, and then make some determinations in terms of what the next steps will be for those. We've done a lot of work on the Cambridge connections, which is the improving the transport around Cambridge and parking and where the bridge goes, etc. We went on a bus tour of Te Awamutu, Kihikihi, Prongia and Naroto the other day. That was very successful, and it's nothing like being out and about and seeing things versus reading reports about things. It was a good trip for all the councillors and the staff involved. Went to a Business After 5 chamber event at the Te Awamutu Museum a while back. That was good. I've had my monthly meeting with the chamber CEO. We went to Te Awamutu Sports, did a presentation about their activities one breakfast morning. That was very useful. I went to the Business Chambers AGM the other night. I was also at the Peace Fountain thing at the Memorial Park, and there's also going to be speed limits changed around schools. Government's lowering the speed limit to about 30 miles per hour around schools, and the signage, 30 kilometres per hour, and the signage for that will be going out slowly but surely over the next few months. So yeah, just a very quick overview of what Dean and I have been doing. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
And Dean can add to anything that I've said.
Thanks, Shane. Yeah, the tour was good, and I think it gave us an opportunity to point out a few things on the side of the district that we've been waiting for a while to do. As well as the other things that we've been attending as councillors, I also went to a meeting with Te Awamutu Lions. They were concerned again about what was going to happen with the Climax Loco, and there'd been talk of alternative sites, possibly going out of the district. There was a suggestion it could be sold and the money could be used for other projects, none of which the Lions were very happy with. So on our tour, I'd already raised with Mia and others that I didn't think that was appropriate, and I said to the Lions we'd try and look for a solution. And on the tour we went to see the loco and had a discussion. Made the point on the tour with the other councillors and staff there that I think the expectation is that it stays in Te Awamutu and that it has a home there, and that's what people are waiting for. And while a lot of people might not have it in the back of their minds right now, if they, as I found out the other day, if you tell someone that it might be going somewhere else, they certainly get riled up. So I think we're working on a solution for that that will hopefully quite soon, because this council's moving out of the building where it is in December, I believe. February, and out by February. That we will have the loco sited somewhere. So yeah.
Is there anything that community board can do to help support that? I know we've been involved all along the way, along the way. We've had various conversations back when Gary Knighton was still here about locations and possible sites. I know, like there was one down below everybody's. There was, I know the Lions were very keen to have it in near Selwyn Park. But there was a cost factor. I mean, we did look at potentially putting it to the side of the Homes Garage, which is still not a bad spot, but it kind of depends what's going on down there, and I imagine that'll be a time factor.
In terms of answering the question, I think it's on the radar, and it's because it cost, I think, $50,000 to move it. So when you move it, you don't want to move it 2 or 3 times. You want to make a decision and just move it there and leave it there. I think, Angela, I think it's well in focus, and there's probably not much more we can do at this stage except slowly push it along. But something has to happen because of that move in February.
Yeah, needs to speed up.
And I'd just say to that too, with my husband being secretary of the Lions for 20 years, that they were delighted when Dean came along and to support them, because they haven't had a lot of support recently. So they were just thrilled that he came along and, was able to support them. And just recently, it looks like, there are a couple of options. And Lions have actually got funding to help towards the housing of it as well. So it's not that council are going to be out of pocket much at all, So there will be a cost, but they've been delighted with Dean's help. Yeah,
I think one of the things that kind of set it back on its ear quite a while ago was that when Gary was involved with it, there was a price done to house it, and it came back at something like 1.2 million, or it was well over $1 million to build a shed with a glass front to be able to get the train in and out. And I know Russ Easton has constantly said it does not need to cost that much. And then we just got stuck on where, and we couldn't agree to where it was going to go. Like we would make suggestions, Lions would make suggestions, and there was always a reason why it couldn't go in that place. But hopefully we can come to some sort of agreement, because I do know Mike had said to me about the train, and there had been some discussion about possibly sending it to the other side of the district. And I thought, oh yeah, that could go down like a That could be as heavy as a train.
Yeah,
On
well, the
how well
Ross-
that would
Ross
go down.
Brothers was suggested, and also the Tararu Museum, and they'd love it.
Oh, yeah, I bet they would, especially now it's all zhuzhed up.
But I think the pressure of the fact that it can't stay where it is is focusing efforts. So probably everyone, to be fair, is a bit more open to making compromises to make it happen.
That certainly helps,
Because,
right?
a lot of possibilities haven't gone ahead over the years as to where it could be housed. Certain things haven't happened.
Yeah,
Um,
no, true.
But now I think we agree, or close to agreeing in a way that a couple of things can happen and we can start the process by putting the loco there first, eh, Shane? Indeed.
Cool. Before we move on, I just had a very quick question in regard to 48 Goodfellow Street, and sorry if I wasn't listening properly. What was the reason behind choosing to get that status changed and dispose of
Do you
it?
know 48 Goodfellow
Yep, I
Street?
know exactly where it
Yeah,
is.
so because it's in between, residences, and it hasn't got a clear access and isn't very well utilised for a number of reasons, and because of the proximity to Anchor Park and other facilities, it was figured that it could be sold and the money could be utilised for something else, and then you've got the other parks not far away.
Okay.
I know it's quite interesting saying that it's not very well utilised, but at the same time said it didn't have a sign saying that. It was
No, it's got a closed gate that makes it
it's
look
got a
like it's
closed gate and
private
things like that.
property.
And there are some others, off Cambridge Road too. And another one on Picket Hill Road, half an acre of land, which we paid a mow for 50 odd years, which to my mind could also be sold off. Which I suggested many years ago. So yeah, if you ever notice a nice half an acre of land on Picket Hill Road with two beautiful big old trees on it, that's ours. It's a reserve that's never used, it's just mown. Never seen anyone on it. Someone parks their boat there now and then.
Sometimes a bit of green space is nice though, right? But anywho, Liam, have you got anything to update, sir?
Thanks. Just since our last meeting, did that submission on that plan change by the railway station. Can't remember the numbering. So talked to a few residents about that, and they outlined their concerns to me and did the submission. And then I think I checked at the end of last week, and the submissions haven't been uploaded yet, and the council's working on a summary. And then I think once that's available, further submissions will open. So I'll keep an eye out for those submissions and have a read when they are. Keep an eye on it.
Cool, and thanks again very much for doing that. So while we were off and about, I attended the Police House Open Day, which they did at Police House in Temple Cottage, which they did a really lovely day, had a sausage sizzle, lots of people through, lots of positive. Jill was very instrumental in being one of the organisers and helpers there, but they had lots of people through there that day. The same as Jill, I attended the and Shane. Oh, and Dean, you were at the fountain opening. So it was really nice to be a part of. It's lovely to see that fountain running again. I would just mention that it struck a leak, so we've had to do a little bit of remedial work on it because the overflow was just a bit too overflowy and it was leaking out the side. But I must say that despite not being a fan of the lights, they do look very pretty and very effective for the couple of hours that they are on. I attended 3 LTP workshops as outlined in my report. Attended the workshop that Shane was referring to about the speed bumps. I noted that there was a petition for a traffic slowing or pedestrian crossing outside the college. I do find, just wanted to mention that I do find this a little bit frustrating in light of the fact that this has come up as a community board issue that we've tried to raise on behalf of the community and largely been ignored. So for us to maybe think, what can we do differently? Because, you know, when these young people try through their parents or through themselves to come to us and for us to try and help, nothing happens. They go along, do a petition, and then, boom, something's happening. So what do we need to do differently to try and put us in the front seat, maybe instead of the back seat? I've been to a couple of volunteering Waikato groups, and what they're trying to do is bring community groups together to enable them better visibility and also enable them to be able to get volunteers more easily. So a couple of the ideas are to have a trustee speed date event for organisations to be able to get trustees. So basically it works just like a speed dating, but you go along. There's a number of organisations that have said, yes, please, we'd like trustees or directors or committee members. There's a brief, you go along if you're interested and you have a chat to that organisation for a couple of minutes and then you move to the next one. They've run them in Hamilton and been super successful, fun, and a great way to get people to be aware of organisations and the needs of our community groups as well. So the Chamber is looking after that. And they are also going to put together a booklet / flyer, depending on how many people organisations they get, to promote the community groups and what they do, again, to help with that volunteer space. And just to say, hey, these are our community groups. Once upon a time, we had the A to Z. And so it was super easy and everybody got out there A to Z to see what the different groups were. CAB do an amazing directory. So we do still have some very good online ways of finding things. But sometimes I think when we've got so much stuff on the computer, internet now, that we've lost a little bit of that visibility. So they're hoping to launch that at the Seniors Expo. So they've been doing some really good work, the groups that have been attending and being involved with that. I had my catch up with Mayor Mike. We talked about the Head Start. I gave him a brief update on where we are with our strategic plan. We talked about the CBD. He suggested that as part of that proposal, if we're still all keen, to include the walkway to George Street and support for the Alexandra Street College pedestrian crossing as part of that, sort of a little bit of an extended part of the CBD, which I thought was worth considering. I also went to the Business Chamber AGM and I thought it was really lovely to see both John Freed and Tom Davies acknowledged for their contribution to business, and for John and Tom as a kaitiaki guardian of Te Awamutu. John Freed has done a huge amount over the years in the district, from his business through to running the bus service and doing those tours, being on the eyesight on Tech Pro back when I first started a long time ago, and to Tom, who also has been on many boards. He's always super enthusiastic. So it was really nice to see those two men acknowledged. And then I had a catch up with Kirsty the other day, and we covered, made some good points. I raised with her about the petition. Also, I mentioned Goodfellow Street in regard to having that discussion on our agenda, I believe, and we have discussed previously as a community board that those things should be coming past us as the community board, to be able to reflect what the community wants and having an opportunity to speak to those prior to them going to council. So we talked about that. And finally, I attended my final Waipa Community Trust AGM and meeting. So I'm officially finished after 12 years being on the Waipa Community Trust, which is something that we always need to keep in mind as community board members, because it enables organisations that don't have a charitable trust status or the mechanism to apply for external funding to be able to have their money held, and that the Waipa Community Trust can apply for funding on their behalf to be able to do big projects. So for example, the bowling club recently had money held by them in trust until they were ready to do a project. Alan Livingston's Home of Champions book was all funded and run through the Waipa Community Trust. So it's a great asset that we've got. We had two members standing down, being myself and Michael Jones, and they've been replaced by Jim Milcrest and Liz Stolwick. So two really good members back on that board. So that's me and my little stint.
And I just forgot, when I was just mentioning my things, that as a community board member, I'm on the executive for the committee for the Seniors Expo, which is on Thursday, the 1st of October, which is International Older Persons Day. And the organisation's going really well, and we're expecting probably about 1,200 people through the doors on that day. So it's going really well. Cambridge, we're going to do one too, and it didn't happen. So we're expecting Cambridge, Otarohanga people, Hamilton people will probably come through. It's based about what's happening in Te Awamutu to let people know what services we've got and what is happening here. But you know, further afield, people are really interested too. So it's coming together really well. Yeah.
Nice. Thanks, Jill, and thanks to that team that's putting that on. The other point is they have been fully subscribed for stall holders. So 40 different stall holders, I think.
We have, and
Yeah,
I've actually, it's going in the Te Awamutu News I'm in charge of the media coverage, so it's going in the paper, but also the Facebook coverage, and I've only just started that, and I've got 10 more people saying, why can't we be involved? So it's a bit of a trick, so we'll probably do it again next year, but I've just had to say to people, look, if you can give me information and pamphlets, that's all I can do at the moment. But yeah, we've got 40 and we could be having quite a few more, yeah.
No, so pretty exciting for the seniors to get that information and have an expo like that. So well done to the team that's organising that. Okay, Dean?
I just said something I probably should have mentioned. When we did our tour, we were able to, because we went to Daphne Street, which is the site that, you know, the Parks and the Waters team use, or the new Waters team, which is the same as the old team, which where they're moving out of, we were able to see where they were moving to when we went down the driveway next to Dibble Transport and down towards Fleet Image. So it's the land that goes towards Anchor Park.
Oh, yeah.
So they had acquired it for the potential Western bypass, and then it wasn't required, obviously, but they managed to carve a decent sized parcel off, which is going to be the new home for parks and reserves. Is Waters going there too? I think they are. Trying to encourage them too. And room for partners, I think they talked about, didn't they? Potentially, but anyway, that's going to be their new building just for that service. So
Hang on, where do you mean down by Fleet Image?
if you go opposite, yes, on the other side of where Fleet Image is, so there's actually a drain that runs down the side of the road, and they will be accessing off that roadway across there.
Drain.
The drain into what is green land at the moment beside Anchor. It goes across to Anchor Park, so it's in behind,
roughly where you
in
mean.
behind where that new building is.
Yep, I know where you
You know,
mean.
the Anchor
Park.
Anchor.
We wipe our plumbing and gases now. The
Yeah.
little brown sort of
Yeah.
like, looks like a barn.
Yeah, and in there. So yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
That's going to be their new spot.
Oh, yeah,
So
nice,
it's a good,
thank you.
probably a good addition too to the good addition to the that precinct.
Okay. Okay, so you guys have been busy, thank you. Right, we will now move on to item 15, which is the date of our next meeting. So the next Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board meeting will be held at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 22nd of September. And that brings me to our closing karakia, being right here. So we have our, oh, it's up on the big screen. If you would like to join me for our whakamūtanga, Puratia te rangi Mārie, Puratia te aroha, Puratia te ngā kaupai, Puratia ngā wawata, kia kore e ngaro, haumie hui e, tai ki e. So we will close the meeting